Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 7-game Major League Baseball slate that starts at 7 o'clock. Make sure to make a comment below with your home run calls of the day. I'll shout out whoever gets one correct. Let's go ahead and get into the slate. I do have some core plays, and Contreras at catcher, Rendon at third base, and then outfield Corbin Carroll. And over on FanDuel, it's actually the same three, Contreras, Rendon, and Carroll. So let's go ahead and get into this slate. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It really helps the channel a lot. With that said, let's get into it here. So Spencer Strider is our top pitcher on the slate. He's had a really solid start to the season. And he has big time upside in this matchup. It's a very nice matchup for him. He's also had 9 strikeouts in every single game. And he's got really good upside for this situation. He's not priced too high either, since there's a lot of value on the slate. So he's pretty easy to roster as your tier P1 pitcher. If you want a contrarian option, then Jordan Montgomery would be the option here. He's got a tougher matchup against San Francisco, but he's pitched decently well. He does feel a little bit pricey, and he does get enough strikeouts to be useful here. But he does have some risk, as he has been giving up quite a few earned runs. But he does get enough strikeouts to make it mostly worthwhile. But he's a good contrarian option to starter. I wouldn't use Montgomery as a P2 option. For my P2 options, Chris Bassett is the top option here for Toronto. Now, he's had an up and down start to the season. He started a season with a really bad game where he was terrible, but he's gotten better each game. And I look for this game to be a really good situation for him against a really bad lineup, so he should have some really good upside in this one. And he gets enough strikeouts to be decent here. His price is cheap enough that he has some potential in this situation, and he's got pretty good upside. Then we're looking at Colin Ray from Milwaukee as an alternative at this position. Now, he has only started 2 games so far, and he had a good game in the first one and a bad game in the second one. His K rate's not ideal, but he's cheap enough that he is worth taking a look at. With that said, that's pretty much the extent of what I think is great today at the pitching position. Into the catchers, we're going to start with William Contreras, who from Milwaukee, who looks like he's in a great spot. He still hasn't hit a home run, which is somewhat surprising, but he's getting hits in most games. He's had a really good start to the season. He's hitting 311. Just a matter of time before he bangs a home run, and the metrics just jump off the charts today for this matchup. And so I really like the potential here. He is also at home, which he's been really good at. But if you want an alternative to him, Salvador Perez is a decent alternative. He's high risk, high reward today, but he has home run potential, and that's why I'm including him here. At the first base, we're going to look at Vlad Jr., who has just been pounding the ball this season. He's hitting a ridiculous 341. He's pretty expensive, obviously, but he has some nice upside, and he has home run potential every time up. He's hitting a home run just about every other day the last 6 games, so if he can continue that, then that would definitely be nice, but we'll have to wait and see. He's a little bit expensive, somewhat hard to roster, especially if you pay up at pitching, but he definitely is got some utility, especially with there being enough value where you can mix in 1 or 2 expensive options. Brandon Belt is a good alternative to him as a Hail Mary kind of call at this position. He is a value slash Hail Mary option. He hasn't hit the ball very well, but he's also not started that many games. And he's getting some hits lately, so he does have some potential here. He also has home run potential in this matchup against weak pitching. Then we'll look at Wilmer Flores for San Francisco. Now, he is against Montgomery, but he's hitting the ball pretty solidly, and he's got nice metrics for this matchup. He's got really good fantasy upside in this situation, and he's relatively cheap for his potential here. At second base, we're going to look at Polanco from Minnesota. Now, he has some interesting upside here, more of just a general hitter, but he started the season as having hits in all the games he's played so far, including a home run. So he has a nice upside, and he's got a pretty decent matchup here against the New York Yankees. Then we'll look at Gorman for St. Louis. Now, he has a really good upside here. He's hitting the ball really well to start the year. He's had 6 home runs already, which is more than I expected him to have at this point, and his price is still pretty fair. He's definitely rosterable on the slate. Then we'll look at third base, and Anthony Rendon is really my favorite option at this position. Despite the fact that he hasn't hit the ball well, the metrics just jump up off the page for him on this particular slate. He looks like a really great option today, and I think he's got some really nice upside. Then we'll look at Austin Riley here for Atlanta. He's a good expensive option if you want to pay up here, he's definitely the best option at this position if you want to do that. Then I have two Hail Mary options as well, and Brosseau from Milwaukee, who has been hitting the ball okay, and he has home run potential in this matchup, which is why he's here, but he's somewhat high risk, high reward. And same goes for Hunter Dozier, who has a really good matchup for Kansas City, but he's high risk, high reward again, and he's not hit the ball particularly well, but he just needs to get a home run to really pay off here. Then we'll look at shortstop, and I really like Carlos Correa. He has some really good metrics for this matchup against Brito. Despite the fact that he hasn't hit the ball particularly well, he does have home run potential in this one, and he has some upside here. He's been getting some hits the last couple games. And then Gio Urshela is a good value play at $3,900. He's hitting the ball pretty solidly for the Angels. Now, he hasn't had a lot of big games this season, but he's got some good metrics for this situation, and so I do think he's viable on the slate. Moving on to outfield, Ronald Acuna is my favorite play, but he's also just uber expensive. He's been getting stolen bases and doing all sorts of crazy stuff lately. His scoring has been off the charts, which is why he's the most expensive player on the slate just about. I think he is probably the most expensive one, yeah, even more expensive than Judge and Ohtani. He's just been blasting the ball, so he has some nice upside in this situation. Byron Buxton, also very interesting here. He has gotten going again finally after having kind of a slow start to the season, and he's got a nice matchup here. He is somewhat hard to roster due to his price, but he has some viability on this one. Corbin Carroll, he looks like a near must play on the slate. He's hitting the ball pretty well to start the year. He's got home run potential on this one. In fact, he jumps off the chart as a top tier home run play on this slate. Then we'll look at Ruiz for Oakland. Now, I don't normally use anybody from Oakland, and I don't think he's really a home run threat, but he is a guy that's hitting the ball decently well, and he's got good potential here. Not only that, but he also has stolen base potential, and he's, the Angels he's facing a weaker pitcher today, and so that gives him some nice upside here. And he's super cheap. Kerry Carpenter is a Hail Mary play here for Detroit. He is a home run or bust type of play, and that is the situation that he gets today. And then, Dalton Varsho for Toronto looks like a decent option today. Despite not hitting the ball particularly well, he's still managing to score some fantasy points in a lot of games, and I do like his upside in this matchup, and so he is viable. And then Hunter Renfroe for the Angels. He's expensive, but he has good potential here as a home run hitter. He's hit the ball pretty well lately, and he's had some home runs, so I like his potential here, and he's hitting well enough, though he is fairly expensive. He is worth taking into consideration. Then we're going to move over here to FanDuel, and we're going to start with our pitchers, and really it's just down to two guys here. You want to pay up or you want to get some value. Spencer Strider is the way to pay up. He has, 55 to 60 fantasy point upside in this matchup. He should be able to get a lot of strikeouts here, and he's been pitching really well to start the season. The other option is Chris Bassett for Toronto, who has just as much. He doesn't have quite as much upside as Strider, but he has decent upside, and he's got more upside than just about any other option on the slate, and he's a lot cheaper, and he awards you more availability. Now, I will say that that it isn't necessary to go against Strider because there's so many value options. In fact, in my lineup, I built one lineup with Strider and one lineup without him. And in the lineup with Strider, I still managed to get several over $3,400 in the lineup, so I think it's definitely viable on the slate. As we move on to our position players, William Contreras looks like a really great option today. Despite not hitting a home run yet, he's hitting the ball really solidly, and it's just a matter of time before he hits a home run, and this matchup really looks like a good option, good potential for him to do so. Vlad Jr. also has some really great upside today. He's hitting the ball masterfully to start the season. He's got really nice upside in this situation. Salvador Perez, also a very interesting option here. Now he's high risk, high reward due to his batting average, but he had some run potential in this one. And then Brandon Belt's kind of a Hail Mary play here on FanDuel, but he has some home run potential in this situation. So I do think that Contreras is a core play as a result. At second base, Wilmer Flores has some really nice upside here. He could actually play first, second, or third, or in the utility spot for that matter, and he's hit the ball pretty solidly to start the year. And it is a tougher matchup, but he has some nice upside. Jorge Polanco from Minnesota has got some really good potential here. He started the season really solidly. It's going to be a cold game for this game in New York, but I do think that he has good upside. Sorry, it's in Minnesota, but I do think he has some really good upside in this situation. Brosseau for Milwaukee is kind of a Hail Mary option at this position. I wouldn't necessarily think he's a great play, but if he does draw the start, he has some potential in this situation. Then we'll look at third base, and Rendon. This looks like a great play on the slate for the Angels. He hasn't hit the ball particularly well lately, but he has home run potential in this one, and the metrics really do scream in his favor today. Austin Riley also has some really good potential in this one against Miami, and he has some nice upside, and he has hit decently well to start the year. Then we'll look at Carlos Correa, and at shortstop, he has some really good upside, and his price is nice and cheap, and that gives him some utility in this matchup. Though he's probably not my favorite option on the slate at the shortstop position because Bobby Witt Jr. is a little bit better when it comes to the metrics here, and he's got more home run potential. He's also just had more games where he's hitting really well, and he's got nice upside in this situation as well. And then we'll look at Urshela for the Angels, who can play shortstop or third base. He has some really good potential in this situation for this matchup, and so I do think he's got some viability. And moving into the outfield, we're looking at Ronald Acuna, who's really expensive but has some really nice upside in this matchup, and he's got stolen base potential, which really gives him a lot of upside. Byron Buxton also is interesting here. I don't like him quite as much due to the weather in Minnesota, but he still has some nice upside here and has good potential. Corbin Carroll looks like a must play today at his price, just a little bit too cheap here for his potential. He's also hitting the ball really well to start the year. Hunter Renfroe also has some nice upside today. For the Angels, he's hitting the ball extremely well, has some really big games on the slate, and he's got really good opportunity to have another one of those type of games. Estier Ruiz also has some really nice upside here. Despite that he's not really a home run hitter, he does get stolen bases occasionally, and he's priced too cheap here with a nice plus matchup. George Springer has some really good upside for the Blue Jays here. He has some I really do like his upside, and while he hasn't hit the ball well, he has home run potential. And then Yelich has also got some nice upside in this matchup. For Milwaukee, he's really been hitting the ball pretty solidly, getting fantasy point wise, and without getting that many home runs so far this season, he's managing to get RBIs and stuff, which definitely helps. And he's even pulling some stolen bases, so that's always a benefit. And then finally, last but not least, Ramon Reyes, if he does come back today, which it looks like he is going to be back, it looks like he'd be back today. At least that's what I'm seeing. If it is the case, then he will have some upside in this matchup, but you'll have to check to see if he does in fact come back today. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.